using stories and taking more ownership of how we deliver those with our vocal tone, our hand gestures, the physicality of how we communicate. We put those things together. That is what becomes the magnet.
All right, Heather, I am so excited to have you on. I'm excited to be able to connect with you. I know that you have so many amazing nuggets of wisdom, and I know you and I have just hit it off and connected in the last couple of months. So it's been so great to get to know you. And so I'm excited to introduce you to everybody listening. So before we dive in all about kind of using your voice, speaking on stage, even if that's not a formal stage, but like an online stage or presence of that sort, do you want to share a little bit about you?
I would love to. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And oh my goodness, it's going to be a fun conversation today. Mm-hmm. So I'm Heather Sager. I'm a speaking coach, and I work specifically with online business owners. So coaches, course creators, people who have digital products, maybe even physical products, but essentially establishing presence online and doing the whole audience building kind of thing, positioning their authority with the whole idea of building a brand that creates impact with helping other people do something. And the thing for me is speaking has always been something that I am naturally gifted at communication skills. It's one of my core things, any personality thing that I ever take, right? Always like, you're really good at communication. But what's funny is I was the shyest kid you ever met when I was a little girl. So I still find it baffling that I help people with speaking. But my thing that I love doing is helping business owners figure out their unique way of connecting with others, helping people figure out what their unique edge is, what's the reason why what they do is unique, and how to connect with people and make a bigger impact by using their voice. So speaking on stages, speaking on podcasts, speaking on virtual events or Instagram reels, all of those places are such great opportunities for people to connect with others. And what I love doing is helping people show up with confidence and with conviction and doing it in a way that actually helps other people.
Yeah. Well, I love that your story started with you being really shy and then overcoming that, because I think that's so much of what we do, right? For so many online business owners is that we have this almost like triumph story or some sort of a skill set that we've acquired. And then we just want to share that and help other people that maybe were in that same position or struggling in that same way before. And now you've got this little zone of, hey, I can help you. And I want to share that. So something you mentioned in there was kind of that unique zone. And I think that is one of the big things, especially for people that are new to getting online and sharing, is that feeling of not wanting to stand out, right? Not wanting to be so unique that you create polarizing and make people angry or mad. You want to just, and I know I did it for so long where I was like riding the happy, I'm going to just inspire you and encourage you and support you for so long that it just was like vanilla. Like there was just nothing that really attracted and made me stand out as unique from all the other voices. So do you want to talk there a little bit about what is so powerful about standing out and being unique and speaking a little bit differently than everybody else, and why that's so needed to keep moving forward?
Yeah. Okay. I want you to think about the people that you follow online, your absolute favorite people on the planet, and think about why you follow them and what kind of interesting, weird, random facts you know about them. I think funny thing, Mel Robbins, she's like the call it like it is kind of person, real crass in how she speaks. She's direct from the tooth. She's got a really low voice. The first time I heard her speak, I was like, wow, she sounds like a smoker. Like she's got that raw, rumbly voice, but she's so real in how she speaks. And I know such random things about her and the fact that she loves doing cold plunges. She does hot yoga. Like I know all these little interesting things about her. But what's funny is I bring up the Mel example is I think there's a lot of business owners who, like you do the posting of the motivational, inspirational, rah. I think probably anyone listening to your show has some kind of awareness of personal development, has probably read some personal development books. Then we all get the bug up our butt to say, I want to teach other people about it. So we start sharing these messages. And maybe it's more so sharing messages around our expertise area. So like speaking skills or Instagram marketing skills or whatever the thing is. What we have to remember is if we were to take all the things that you post online or all the things that you talk about in a variety of ways, and we were to remove your name and then we were to throw it in a hat, maybe they're all in little index cards. We throw them in a hat and we glob in all the other people who do what you do. and removed everyone's names and the branding, right? It's just text, just plain old Times New Roman font text on an index card in a hat. And we were to pull it out. The question is, would we know it was your message? Would we know it was your way of doing things? I think with Mel Robbins, for example, when she talks about her stories and her content, she's a very unique way in how she communicates things.
Yeah.
It's super direct. She uses the F word. She's pretty bold in it. She calls people on their BS. Mel Robbins, you know her tone. You know her story. So when we think about the unique edge, I think a lot of times people think about it as their method or their formula or their secret way of doing things, which as a marketer and as somebody who teaches communication for business owners, we definitely need to make sure that you have a quote unquote signature style for how you get people results. But I think the thing that I want people thinking about today is your unique edge is not always just in your message. Sometimes it's your stories and your experience. It's the weird, quirky things that you do with your voice or your face or your random love of Target dollar aisle area. It could be your love of comic books. I mean, all these interesting little things, they create this uniqueness about you. And it's almost like, I don't know, I love food. So let me think about a food analogy here. Let's think about like a birthday cake. My child turns 4 this weekend, and I'm in the thick of wanting to decorate him a birthday cake.
Yeah.
And all of the birthday cakes, you go online and order them from this little bakery shop. It starts with this plain cake with white fondant on it, which I'm like, a 4-year-old doesn't need fondant, like buttercream this up. But it's all the same freaking cake, but how you frost the cake is going to create the moment when my 4-year-old sees it, where he's going to be excited and be like, this is uniquely perfect for me. So what we have to think about as business owners is what's our unique spin on it? What's the frosting? And granted, this is where the metaphor stops because sure, the insights are probably different between us all, but we have to start thinking about, it's not just about what you say, although that matters, but it's also the stories that you tell and your unique perspective on things. I think we forget that those people that we follow online and love and respect, they have all of that. They have very bold flavors and perspectives and stories, and they bring it in unapologetically. They don't show up as just generic. So finding our unique edge has to be about our approach. It has to be about understanding what stories we tell, what our unique experiences are, and how that actually helps us better serve our audiences.
Yeah. Well, side note, my daughter just had her birthday recently, and my oldest was like, I want to make her a rainbow cake.
Yeah.
And so she and I did this whole not science experiment, but essentially, and the cake probably was a foot tall, but each layer was a different color. And so then when we cut it open, it looked like a rainbow inside. So it was just funny that you brought up the cake story.
I love that. Okay.
So it was white on the outside, but rainbow on the inside. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. My 4-year-old, he's obsessed with Minnie Mouse right now.
Okay.
So he wants a Minnie Mouse cake.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so we're doing a pink and purple cake with giant Minnie Mouse with a bow ears. He's going to freak when he sees his cake. But that's his unique flavor is Minnie Mouse.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, and I think it's so valuable that you brought up, we just talk about this conversation of the uniqueness, right? Because I think that is people being comfortable sharing that voice and sharing what's unique and sharing what's different. But that requires, like you talked a lot about that boldness, but it requires a lot of confidence, which I know if you're just beginning to step out there, that can take a lot. And I know years ago, I thought I was confident. And then every time I was required to do something different and face that, oh my goodness, I don't think I know what I'm doing right now, it continued to grow and grow and grow. And then now I look back, gosh, how far my confidence level has grown and how far I know it could continue to go. But that confidence piece, I think, is a big piece that a lot of women are lacking when they first start stepping out there and putting their voice out there. Right? Not wanting to get the naysayers and not wanting to get the trolls. And I've even seen it. And I know in my world now, I'm like, yes, a troll. That means I was rocking the boat. But I know that it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people in that initial phase to put themselves out there and feel like there's a lot of really nasty people out on the internet that are just waiting to tear you apart when you put something out there. So how does that confidence level, or how does that confidence play into creating that unique story and that unique version of yourself?
Yeah, I think let's explore that piece. This just came to me as I was writing down some notes as you were saying things, this thought around this word confidence. We all want it. And then we were like, what does it even mean? Like, what does it even mean, right? To be more confident. I think when you mentioned this before, we don't want to mess up. Right. I hear business owners all the time. They want to do what they see other people doing, speaking, either maybe speaking at event stages or speaking up at virtual summits or being on panels or being on podcasts or just showing up consistently on video, on social, like whatever that looks like. We all have this picture of what we think we want to be doing. And if we think like, if only I could be more confident, then I would be able to do that. And what I would challenge everyone to think about is, if we're being real here, is it that you want confidence or you want to have certainty that you're not going to screw up? You want to be confident, or you just want the security of knowing like, oh man, they're not going to attack me online. Like, is it really that we want confidence, or what we actually want is we want to not fall. We want to not fumble. We want to not screw up. We not want to get caught up in our own words or have a bunch of filler words or screw up on stage or have somebody provoke us or whatever that looks like. What we actually want is, we don't want confidence. We want it to go well.
Yeah.
And what we think it's going to be like, if I'm only more confident, well, the confidence doesn't serve us. So what I like to think about, Brendon Burchard, he has something that he references all the time, and he calls it his Confidence-Competency loop. And I want you to imagine for a moment, if you're listening to this, you know, that infinity sign, like a figure 8 turned sideways, how it's a never ending loop. And on one side, we have confidence. And in confidence, you swoop in the loop and then you circle back on the figure 8 and you head back over. The other side is competency. So confidence and competency. And here's how this pans out. We have high confidence when we decide, oh, I'm going to try something new, like get on live video. Okay, I just got to like get brave enough for 20 seconds just to start it. And so our confidence is high. So we take risks and we learn something new. And then we realize, holy crap, I'm terrible at this. Or holy crap, like, where do I look? Where's the camera? I don't even know. And instantly our awareness for just how terrible we are and unprepared we are tanks. So our confidence goes down the crapper. So what we have to do is recognize that if we want to get confidence back, the way that we do that is to improve our competency. So on the loop, we move over and we say, all right, probably next time I got to learn where the freaking microphone is or where the camera is, or maybe I should think about what I'm going to say before I get on. So what we do is we start then saying, how do I build a skill? How do I increase my competency? And so we do that. And then our competency, as that grows, our confidence starts growing. We're like, okay, that wasn't so scary. I went live. I didn't die. Like, my aunt showed up and cheered me on. I wish it was actual clients, but cool. So then we get a little bit more brave, and then we start showing up a little bit more consistency. But then we start noticing like, okay, nobody's buying or nobody's showing up, or it's just my aunt or it's just my sister. And then we start second guessing. And then what happens to our confidence? Our confidence goes down the crapper. And we're like, it's all terrible. It's not working. My message is horrible. And we start freaking out a bit. Until we realize, oh, you know what I got to do? I got to go work on my skills.
Yeah.
How should I structure a message? How do I get people to pay attention in the first 5 seconds or lose them? How do I actually sell when I'm on a webinar versus just ramble about what I know? How do I tell a story? We start asking questions.
Yeah.
And when we focus on the right questions, we can then build our skills, which then circle back and our confidence grows. Isn't a matter of whether or not confidence is not an on and off switch. Confidence is in direct proportion with our competency. So what I find is a lot of business owners have built their careers based around what they've naturally figured out. If you're a business owner and you're here and you've been cranking it out and you've been hustling and you've been like, oh man, I have like built it, but now you're hungry going, but what's next? What we have to do is start pointing the light at, okay, what skills do I need to learn for my next move?
Yeah.
So that's what I like to have that conversation between is, what are the skills I need to learn? And that is how you address the confidence conversation.
Yeah. And I think that's so valuable. I've never heard of that loop, even though I've followed Brendon Burchard. Brendon Burchard was actually the very first like gateway into personal development for me. I went to his high performance academy years ago. My mom invited, it's like a free ticket. And I went, and he was I mean, it was so invigorating and so fun. And he's literally up there, got the whole room dancing. I thought the floor was going to fall through. He was like the whole room, it's just so vibrant. And he was the very first, like he was my gateway into that.
Yeah.
And I think it is very valuable to kind of look at that competence. I've never thought of it in that infinity loop, but it is totally true. Exactly how you explained it, that you have to, you face that. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then you go down and you're like, crap. And then you have to keep learning and you just keep growing. And that over time, it's almost like those infinity loops kind of stack on top of each other, like different skill sets, right? Like,
it keeps going. It's a constant exploration. So I think just real quick to point out, there is this tendency, especially as women, as business owners, and as you talk about, especially at certain times of our cycle, where we start questioning ourselves and everything.
Yes.
I like to be like, hold on. If my confidence is shaky or the world is falling apart or I need to go, hold on real quick. What is the skill that I have underdeveloped right here that I need to lean into?
Yeah.
Because when I lean into my competency, I then am able to, as a result, my confidence will grow. But void of understanding like what the skill is, it's just a feeling, and feelings aren't going to help us build our businesses.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought in that cycle piece, because that was going to be kind of where I went next. Was I talk a lot about using that connect phase to be the most magnetic, right? The best time for you to actually communicate, to do these speaking events, to do all of these things. And I know that's kind of your zone of genius too, is helping magnetize those people to you. So what are some of those top things? I know we talked about the uniqueness and having that unique voice, but what are some of those other things that really help you attract and magnetize those people that you really want to work with, right? Like not just anybody, because there's lots of people out there, and I've worked with lots of people that I'm like, they're not my ideal clients. So how do you really attract those people that you are like soulmate clients, what some people will call it, like those people you really love working with?
Yeah. Okay. So I have something I teach inside my programs that we follow. It's called our magnetic talk formula or magnetic message formula. So just to clarify, when I talk about speaking, a lot of times people think about a stage, like at a conference. And I know I've mentioned multiple other variations for this, but what we have to recognize as business owners is that we talk to people every single day. So regardless if there's a formal microphone or a formal stage, like that's just nuanced details. We're talking to people all the time. So even what we're talking about here, if it is a stage, great, but it could be all those other things like a live stream. It could be a sales call. It could be a webinar. It could be a podcast. It could be Instagram stories. Like we have to open up that picture around speaking is using your voice to communicate with other people. And in this situation, it's communicating with your ideal person. But what I like to focus on, there's 4 main things that we can start mastering. And we look at these as each one of these as you get started in it. And then it's a continual refinement. It's a continual level up in these areas. So let me walk you through the 4, and then we can go wherever your heart fancies on this. To what we have to think about in order for us to connect and attract our ideal person, we have to start with item number 1, which is purpose. A big mistake a lot of business owners make is they just want to talk about what they talk about. They get on stage, they just start talking about certain projects or certain topics. They come up with a list of, here's all the content pieces I can do for my Facebook Lives for the next 6 months. Or if it's an online creator, they're thinking, what content should I put in my pre-launch marketing before I go to sell? They think about all these things, but what we have to start is by asking the question around what is our goal here for every live, for every podcast interview, for every stage, even on webinars, we have to be really clear around what is the end goal for us and what's our end goal for our audience. I think it's really easy for us to live inside. If you heard that expression, you can't read the label from inside the jar.
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's so you can't read the label from inside the jar. Imagine as a business owner, as an expert, you're so close to your topic and of expertise. You're used to seeing things from your way and then projecting the results that you think your audience wants. And what we have to do is part of understanding that purpose, that goal is saying, but what are our audience's goals? Not just the long-term goals, but like right now, what do they want? For me, my long-term goal for my clients is ultimately they want to attract their dream clients. They're using speaking as a way to make more money, make a bigger impact, attract clients. But if I only talk about that, I'm missing a big boat here because most people are still going, the problem is I still don't actually know how to technically run a live stream, or I don't even know where the heck I would find a speaking gig, or I don't even know what the heck I would talk about. Like, I don't have this big, powerful life story. There's all these other things in place. So we have to really start by getting clear around what is the goal here for us? What do we want speaking to do for our business? Like, why are we doing all these live streams? Why are we doing all these podcasts? Like, we hope it's going to grow something, but really being tactical. Because if we don't know what the point of all of it is and what we want people to do, we're just doing a lot of activity. I see a lot of business owners are in groups going, I want to find podcasts to be on. And they just raise their hand to be on all these podcasts, but then they're wondering, why is my business not growing? They're not directly connecting the efforts between activity and results. So number one, if you want to attract dream clients, you really have to start by asking some questions, which I know sounds super simple, but just because it's common sense doesn't mean it's always common practice. Shout out to favorite quote, Will Rogers on that one. But we have to really get present with that. So if you want to be magnetic on stage, you got to know why you're there in the first place and why your audience is there. That's number one. Number two is we have to think about the structure of our message. And this is a big one because how we structure what we talk about, it guides our audience from where they're at right now to that ultimate purpose. So one of the, I don't know if you've experienced this or you hear this from people, but one of the number one questions I get from people is like, how do I overcome sales objections? Like in a webinar, how do we address all these objections? And if you leverage a strong structure when you speak, you can avoid all of those objections from the get-go. Yeah. And the challenge is most of us are used to just delivering information. We wear the hat of a presenter, probably using the speaking skills we learned in high school or college or corporate presentations. We use skills to give information, but we aren't just educators. We aren't just giving information. We have to wear the hat of marketers. When you use your voice in your business, when you are the face of your business, when you're speaking in all these different ways, you're actually a marketer. So you have to understand how to structure technically a message in a way that is persuasive and influential and useful. The third and fourth one, I'll just hit on those quickly. It's the stories that you tell and your style, how you tell those stories, how you deliver your message, how you show up, the quality of your set, the quality of your videos, the filler words you use, the tone of your voice, all of those things. But the story piece, I want to hit on that. I think we're so used to people in marketing telling us, use stories. But I think so many people have this false belief that they don't have cool enough stories to share. You feel that?
Yes.
Right. We hear like, especially if you read any kind of books, business books, marketing books, like the stories that people tell in those books these days, like there's actually like a whole science around how to write a story in a book, but we have this thing around like, I don't have any good stories. So we just don't tell them. And we focus on how can I give more tangible, practical tips? That will be my value thing. And we actually rob people of the opportunity to experience our content. Because how our brains work is our brains are always working. I'm sure you've heard people say before that your brain's constantly using calories in an overdrive. So it's always trying to filter things out. And the number one thing it loves to filter out is a bunch of facts and figures and things that make it work too hard. But story taps into a different part of our brains. And the beautiful part around stories is that becomes the thing that becomes memorable. Yeah. So if you think about, like, I'm sure your listeners can remember stories that you tell on your podcast. Like specifically, I was listening to one of your episodes a couple of weeks ago around how you were in a really interesting season right now, but you were working on a weekend recording some episodes, right? And how your husband was super supportive around how can I clear your plate today to support you. You used a little bit of a story on that episode where you can picture, I think, you sitting at the kitchen table and your husband asking, like, how can I help support you today? If you would have just said, I'm busy right now, my husband's being awesome, that would not have been memorable. But actually using little everyday vignettes in our content, it connects in the brain of your audience as a memorable piece where they might not remember all the things that you do. That's not really important because there's a bunch of people who do what you do. But if they can remember the stories that you tell and how it makes them feel in relation to your content, that's a powerful thing. But when we start putting these four things together, as you can see, being more clear around why we're speaking and what the results are we want, being understanding how to structure our message in the way of marketer, but not like a schmucky marketer, a powerful one that creates impact, using stories and taking more ownership of how we deliver those, with our vocal tone, our hand gestures, the physicality of how we communicate. We put those things together. That is what becomes the magnet. Because when you show up fully and you show up in that way, the right person sees that and says, I don't know what it is, but like, how do I work with you?
Yeah.
It happens. It happens all the time. And that's what we have to start thinking about, is asking more intentional conversations around how can we deliver our content in a more powerful way.
Yeah. And it's so important. I think that over the years, I've slowly transitioned my thought process to more of that marketing space. And I realized it when my aunt and I were talking about starting a business stuff together. And she's a therapist. She and I are both therapists. And we were talking about starting this program together. And it was exactly what you're talking about, like the tips, the suggestions, the ideas, the strategies, all the things that they need. And in my head, I was like, you have to think like a marketer. We have to like switch gears and not teach all the time. And even recently, I was talking to a client of mine and talking about that element of inside your program. The goal is not to teach, the goal is to transform. And so when you take that lens back and say, how can I get out of teacher mode and giving just tons and tons of content, but what is the most valuable content and that I can give them that's going to create that transformation that they really desire? Because you could teach up the wazoo and nobody do anything with it or anything. But if you can provide that transformation in something super small and super simple, that's far more effective than hours of teaching and content. And
Bingo.
How that's the key difference. So I think even looking at your marketing, it's like, how can you create a transformation or that moment of somebody having that aha that changes everything, not just the how to teach step-by-step tips, right?
I think it's really important. And what's interesting is what might be coming up for someone right now is thinking, but like, I don't want to use like tactics on people. I don't want to try to like convince them or push things. I generally just want to help. And just cue into that for a moment is the idea that if anyone's feeling resistance to like, but I don't want to do like a sneaky way or do the whole Jedi, talk to them about the mindset thing. Like I actually want to teach them information that's going to help them. And what we have to consider, so I'll make this story quick here, but so before starting my business, I worked in the medical space for 10 years. I specifically worked with private practice audiologists, which were hearing doctors. And I have a hearing loss. So I've had a hearing loss now for 18 years. I wear hearing aids. I can't function without them. And the person that I worked with audiologists, and my role was to teach audiologists and their teams how to essentially sell hearing aids. So for a moment, think about this. You're a doctor, you go to medical school, you want to help people. It's why you're going to like do this whole medical program, is to help people. And then you get out of medical school and realize that the way that you help people is selling them a $10,000 set of computers that go in their ears. And it's funny, we don't need to get the specifics of it, but audiology is one of the medical professions in the US that there's not a lot of insurance with it. People pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about hearing is people go into these offices, myself included, knowing that they have a hearing loss. But the thing about hearing is they don't really know what they're missing. It just feels like the world around them is mumbling.
Yes.
Now, audiologists are technical people. They have the analytical brain. Thank goodness. That's not me, but they have this, like, if only I could just show them how bad their hearing loss is, then of course they're going to say yes to buying these devices. That's logical, right? You see it, you know, something's going on. You see the proof of it. Of course you're going to buy it. But the thing is you know where this is probably going. That was not true. Someone who even is highly aware of their hearing loss and goes in and see it does not mean that they're actually going to purchase the hearing aids. It doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because we all have our own identities around that. Maybe it's well, if I say yes to hearing aids, it means that I'm getting old. It means I've run out of time. It means like there's something wrong with me. I don't want to be associated with that. It could mean that like, I don't want to spend that kind of money. That seems stupid. Like, why do I have to spend that when all these other quote unquote normal people are walking around with perfectly good hearing? Like, screw that. Like all of these things. Right. And for me, I started at the company when I did not wear hearing aids. I knew I had a hearing loss. It was all very logical. I knew I could get them, but yet I didn't. And what I did in the company, I actually experienced it and then I taught it, is I taught doctors how to open up a conversation to explore where people were experiencing challenges in their life related to hearing. I helped them learn how to have conversations to open up the context around what life was like. For me, it looked like I had no idea that my hearing loss was impacting my relationship with my husband. I didn't know that he was having to adapt how we communicated. And all this to say is I built my career of teaching doctors how to do the most powerful thing. And that was helping people get the gift of hearing. Grandmothers being able to finally hear their grandsons in FaceTime all the way across the country, helping men who weren't retired yet, but were losing their hearing, but they were struggling in boardrooms. They were finally able to feel back in control of their professional lives, or aunts and uncles being able to connect with their kids. Like all these people who had hearing losses, technically speaking, they needed help and the technology could help them, but there was a block in the middle and they could not accept that help because they didn't understand how that help would really help them. It's a lot of help in one sentence. But I bring this forward. A lot of business owners, maybe you're not a doctor, right? And you're like, well, I don't do that. But I would bet that the people listening to your show, they have a gift to do something that will be impactful to others, whether that's helping them with marketing or helping them with nutrition or helping people get more organized or whatever that looks like. There is something that you do that will help others. And we think a lot of times that it's logical that someone sees the problem, of course they would want help. But life is not that easy. As humans, we are way more complex than that. And we need someone to coach us through the decision. And the thing is either that person can be you and you can help them make an intelligent decision to evaluate their options and make an empowered choice, or you can leave that decision to a competitor who might be schmucky and might just be in it to make money. So as a business owner, if you want to make an impact, you have a duty as part of that impact to learn how to communicate, to learn how to educate others at that decision point to help them make an empowered decision. Otherwise, you're potentially turning them over to the wolves. And I know that goes against a lot of the values for business owners. So I know marketing and selling can sometimes be prickly for people. But when you learn how to communicate in a way that makes it powerful for both you and your audience, it really changes the game. And honestly, that's the thing that will make you most magnetic for your person.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Heather, there was so much in this episode and I think it was amazing. I think so many people are just going to sit there and want to work with you and want to know more about what you're doing so that they can become more magnetic in what they're doing and how they're speaking. And really, ultimately, I know you brought this in was the impact piece, right? That is a big portion of why business owners are doing what they're doing is to make an impact on other people's and to help them and to be able to, like you said, communicate that in a way that really helps support making that bigger impact and driving those transformations for people that they would not have otherwise been able to get if you hadn't the voice or the courage, the confidence, whatever it is to step into that unique space. Is there anything that you feel like we've left out that you want to make sure we touch on?
There's so many things we can talk about, but I think we touched on this earlier, but I think I mentioned this in passing. All it takes is just a few seconds of insane courage to get started. I think there's this idea that we have to be perfect, right? That someone somewhere has the secret of how to do this the right way. And yeah, I can give you the templates and tools all day long. Yes, you can listen to my podcast and learn how to be more magnetic. But at the end of the day, you can't elevate the way you communicate and reach more people if you're unwilling to suck at it at the start. Doing new things, it's always going to be challenging. You're probably going to be fumbly. It's going to be messy. Do it now. Do it while you're small. Do it while you're learning and own that. And my hope for all of us is that as we build businesses, people say this all the time, but we look back at our content from 6 months ago and we cringe. A little because we're like, oh, but we also look at it with pride because it shows our growth. So start using your voice, test it out today. Go on Instagram stories and share something that you were thinking about with your audience. Make it about them. What's something that they might be thinking about right now? Just get started and do not worry about if it's perfect or if it's rambly or if it's filled with whatever, or you're looking where, just get out there because you have a message. And the only way that you can help people is to show up for them. So make it about them, speak to them, start speaking from the heart, but just get started.
Yeah, I love that. I had a reminder memory or whatever pop up on Instagram, and I had used a filter, and the filter, I think I must have been exhausted or something anyway, but the filter added on top of it majorly looked like I had big old black bags under my eyes. It was just the most depressing image of me ever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I went live like that. Whatever I did, just like you said, so cringy that I look back at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. Like, this is the most awful video I could have ever put out there, but I did it and I kept moving forward. So
Yep.
yeah, I love that. So,
and you say, and I'm grateful for that weird filter girl because she got me to where I am. Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing when you look back at all the little, even like you said, just looking back 5 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 weeks ago, every time you show up, you're expanding and growing every single time. So it's no wonder that you continue to grow if you continue to put yourself out there and be willing to grow and expand. So I love this episode. And I know other people are going to want to go connect with you. So can you tell them where they can do that?
Yeah. So if you love my storytelling, right, and the things that we're talking about today, if it's idea of, speaking with structure, with purpose, or even just the kick in the pants, right? I'm fun to be around. If you want a little bit more of that, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably like podcasts. So that would probably be the best place for us to connect a bit further. My podcast is The Heather Sager Show. Pretty easy, Heather Sager. So come find me on there. And if you want me to send you some of my favorite playlists, just reach out and I'll send you a link. I have a best of playlist for the podcast. So you can reach out on Instagram. It's my name there too, The Heather Sager. But I want to lean into, for those who are thinking that sales conversation really struck a chord, that idea of really helping own that. A big question I always get from people is like, but what do I say? That's really awkward around making that ask. Like if you have a lead magnet or you're on a podcast like this around like, how do I get people to go listen to my podcast? And you're like, wow, she said that so effortlessly. Like, how do you get people moving to your stuff? One of my most downloaded things that I have is a cheat sheet where I give you 19 magnetic phrases to use when you're speaking to get people running to your opt-in pages. So if you have lead magnets, if you have a free Facebook group, if you want people to grow your audience, I can give you that cheat sheet, but it's 19 magnetic phrases that you can use on live video, podcasts, or stages to send people to your opt-in page. So you can grab that at heathersager.com/magnet.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll have that all hooked up in the show notes for everybody. So you can snag that there and go right on over there. That sounds amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Heather, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. It's been a pleasure to know you and a pleasure to be able to work with you in the space. And I just hope you have a fabulous day.
Likewise. Thanks, Renee.
Yeah.